Gaza, one of the oldest cities in the world, a small piece of land on the edge of the Mediterranean, a place that seems to have been blessed with everything: fertile soil, the sea, and a location at the crossroads of history. Yet this same location made Gaza a battlefield for thousands of years. This is the story of a city that has lived through every empire, seen glory and ruin, fallen countless times, and always risen again. The name of Gaza appears in history thousands of years ago. It lay along the ancient trade route known as the Via Maris, connecting Egypt and Mesopotamia. Gaza was not just a city, it was a bridge between civilizations. Caravans passed through it carrying spices, gold, and stories from faraway lands. Because of this, every great empire wanted Gaza. The Egyptians, the Philistines, the Greeks, the Romans, all claimed it, all left their marks on it. The first to settle and rule here were the Philistines, from whom the word Palestine itself is derived. They turned Gaza into one of their principal cities, filled with temples, markets, and art. But its strategic location always invited conquest. The pharaohs of Egypt controlled it for centuries. Later came the Babylonians and Persians. When Alexander the Great marched through the region, Gaza stood in his way. The city resisted his army for 3 long months. When it finally fell, Alexander ordered every soldier inside to be killed, and Gaza was burned to the ground. Yet within years, it rose again. Because Gaza never truly dies, it simply rebuilds. Under Roman rule, Gaza became a prosperous trading hub. Merchants from across the Mediterranean filled its markets. Over time, Christianity spread, and churches replaced the old pagan temples. Then, in the 7th century, a new era dawned, the era of Islam. Arab armies brought Gaza under Muslim rule, and a new chapter began. Mosques rose beside markets, Arabic replaced Greek, and Islamic culture took root. For centuries afterward, Gaza thrived under Muslim dynasties, the Umayyads, the Abbasids, the Fatimids, and finally, in 1517, it became part of the Ottoman Empire. For the next 400 years, Gaza remained a quiet provincial town of the Muslim world. Dusty streets, busy markets, the call to prayer drifting through the sea breeze. But by the 19th century, the world was changing. Europe was industrializing, and the Ottoman Empire was weakening. The great powers, Britain and France, began to divide the Middle East among themselves. Then came the First World War. In 1917, British forces attacked Gaza. There were 3 major battles fought here: the First, Second, and Third Battles of Gaza. The first 2 ended in British defeat, but the third brought Ottoman control to an end. From that point, Gaza became part of the British Mandate of Palestine. This was the beginning of modern Gaza, where ancient history ended and a new political tragedy began. Under British rule, tension grew between the Arab and Jewish communities. The Zionist movement in Europe called for a homeland for Jews in Palestine, a land already inhabited by Arabs for centuries. The British tried to manage both sides, but year after year, the conflict deepened. Between 1936 and 1939, an Arab revolt broke out. In Gaza and other parts of Palestine, British troops and Jewish settlements were attacked. The rebellion was crushed, but it left a lasting mark. It awakened in the people a restless dream of independence. Then came 1948. The British Mandate ended, and the United Nations proposed a plan to divide Palestine into 2 states, one Jewish and one Arab. According to the plan, Gaza was to belong to the Arab side. But as soon as Israel declared its independence, neighboring Arab nations invaded. This was the first Arab-Israeli war. When the war ended, Israel had established its state, and Gaza had fallen under Egyptian control. The war displaced hundreds of thousands of Palestinians. Many fled to Gaza. The city, once small, became a crowded refugee zone. Families shared single rooms. Tents filled the open land, and the sound of loss filled the air. In the 1950s, Gaza was overflowing with refugees. Egypt administered the area, but did not annex it. A new Palestinian identity began to form, one defined by loss and defiance. In 1956, during the Suez Crisis, Israel invaded Egypt with the support of Britain and France and briefly occupied Gaza. But international pressure forced its withdrawal. Egypt took control again, but the people of Gaza had already learned that their struggle was far from over. In 1967, another war erupted, the Six-Day War. Israel struck swiftly against Egypt, Syria, and Jordan. In just 6 days, it occupied Gaza, the West Bank, and East Jerusalem. Gaza now lived under Israeli military occupation. What began then continues even today. Decades of resistance, repression, and unimaginable human cost. The streets of Gaza became symbols of defiance. Children threw stones. Soldiers responded with bullets. Through the 1970s and 1980s, Gaza became a name that echoed across the world, a place of courage and despair. In 1987, it erupted again, the Intifada, the uprising. It began when a Palestinian vehicle collided with an Israeli truck. The protests that followed spread through every camp and alley. Gaza's youth fought not with guns, but with stones. The first Intifada had begun, and a new movement was born, Hamas. Formed inside Gaza, Hamas represented an Islamic vision of resistance, distinct from the secular Palestine Liberation Organization led by Yasser Arafat. While Arafat negotiated from exile, Hamas took control of the streets. They declared that the struggle was not only political, but also spiritual. Over time, Gaza became their base and their symbol. In 1993 came a fragile hope, the Oslo Accords. Arafat and Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin signed an agreement promising limited self-rule to Palestinians. The world celebrated. In 1994, Arafat returned to Gaza, greeted by crowds who believed peace had finally come. The Palestinian Authority was formed. For a brief moment, people dreamed of open borders, jobs, and normal lives. But the dream didn't last. The walls of distrust, revenge, and fear were too thick. By the late 1990s, violence and disillusion returned. In 2000, following Ariel Sharon's controversial visit to Jerusalem's mosque compound, the second Intifada began. Gaza was again engulfed in war. This time, it was deadlier. Suicide bombings, airstrikes, and military raids turned the narrow strip into ruins. Life in the refugee camps became unbearable. Gaza had become one of the most densely populated places on Earth, and one of the most trapped. In 2005, Israel made a dramatic move. It withdrew its army and settlements from Gaza. Many thought peace might finally be possible. But in 2006, elections were held, and Hamas won, to everyone's surprise. The victory changed everything. Rivalry erupted between Hamas and Fatah, Arafat's old party. It turned into a violent civil war. In 2007, Hamas took full control of Gaza, expelling Fatah forces. From that moment, Gaza and the West Bank were divided, politically and physically. Then came a blockade. Israel sealed Gaza from the air, land, and sea. Nothing and no one could leave freely. Goods were restricted, fishing zones limited. Electricity ran only a few hours a day. The Strip became an open-air prison. Hospitals ran out of medicine, clean water grew scarce, yet life continued, because where else could people go? Since 2008, Gaza has seen war after war. 2008, 2012, 2014, 2021. Each conflict bringing destruction, death, and a few months of silence before the next began. Rockets fill the skies, airstrikes level neighborhoods, and civilians, always civilians, pay the price. After every war, the world speaks, condemns, debates, and then forgets. Gaza remains. Children in Gaza walk to school past tanks. They draw houses with no roofs and airplanes in the sky. Yet when asked what they want to be when they grow up, they answer, doctors, engineers, teachers. That perhaps is Gaza's greatest miracle, to keep dreaming in the ruins. Today, Gaza is one of the most isolated and impoverished places on Earth. Most of its people survive on humanitarian aid. Electricity is limited, unemployment is staggering, and the constant buzz of drones fills the air. But still, people build schools, open cafes by the sea, and laugh when the nights are calm. life refuses to disappear. Gaza is a paradox, one of the world's oldest cities, yet a symbol of endless suffering. Every child here grows up with memories of loss older than their own life. Every mother carries the weight of unburied dreams. And yet, every morning, they open their doors, hoping for a day without explosions, a night with light, and a safe return of their children from school. When you see images of Gaza, broken buildings, dust-filled streets, faces lined with both fear and dignity, you realize this is not merely a conflict zone. It is a story of survival, a spirit that has been crushed but never killed. And every time the world reads the headline, "Conflict in Gaza continues," behind that simple sentence are thousands of untold stories, of mothers, of children, of ordinary people who still believe, against all odds, that peace might one day find them. Because Gaza is not just a place. It is a pulse, the heartbeat of a people who have refused to vanish, through centuries of war, through empire and exile. And maybe one day, when the dust settles for good, the laughter that once echoed through its markets and the sound of waves by its shores will return. Until then, Gaza lives, scarred, silent, but unbroken.